it's right around the corner, and we're here at the UAC football kickoff. I'm Kendra Sheehan alongside the Chief Executive Officer, Jeff Bacon of the Unison Sports. And Jeff, it's been a crazy couple months for you, really a crazy past year and a half as you've built this new model. And July 1st was a big day for the Unison Sports. And can you tell me a little bit about what this new model is for those who are watching at home and why you felt like this was the time to bring the Unison Sports alive?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to frame it as it's not just me, it's 17 schools, right, who have decided to come together in this new space in this new way. So, real credit goes to our presidents in particular and our athletic directors who understood and believed in this vision, which is really to try to take two conferences and put a support structure in place behind them so that we can operate more efficiently and improve the output for our schools and for our student athletes. And so that means a few things. We're going to be able to, through Unison Sports, reduce some expenses, consolidate some of our overhead. We're going to be able to drive additional value by pooling together two conferences and 17 schools. And we're going to be able to create competition. Now we've got, again, 17 schools across the most populated, greatest part of the country. And so talk about getting great games in our gyms and on our fields and those kinds of things. So it's really created efficiencies of scale. I think it's going to continue to grow. I'm really excited about the future, what we'll be able to do together. But really, it goes back to, as you said, a year and a half ago. And at that point, 15 schools and 15 presidents realizing if we want to improve our state in Division I, we have to think a little bit differently, get outside of the box a little bit, and find new ways to create and enhance value. And that's really what we've done.
And I've heard nothing but positive things about the name Unison. It just rolls off the tongue. I know people are loving that. And for the UAC, we have Kickoff right around the corner, and you just released the new Forge Ahead model and identity. So why did that become what you want this conference to be known as, especially as you look at it moving forward?
Yeah, well, brand is important, right? And identity is important. And having your brand and your identity be authentic to who you are is really, really important. And so coming into this, the United Athletic Conference, as you know, existed in football form only in the past. And so we had a brand in terms of a look, a logo, a name, all of that. But what we didn't have, and what became really important when we turned it into a multi-sport conference, was an identity. Who is the UAC, right? Who are these schools and what do they represent? And when you look at our campuses and you think about the leadership, the geography that we occupy, and most importantly, I think in this league, the investment in college athletics and the belief in college athletics and what it does for an institution from a presidential seat in particular. We've got really tremendous presidential leadership across all of Unison Sports in both conferences. And in the UAC in particular, what we see is a group of 9 schools that are really invested in Division I athletics, in the experience for their student athletes, and quite frankly, Kendra, in winning, right? We want to win. And so we're not satisfied with the status quo. That's represented and obvious by our ability to form Unison Sports, right? But it's also when you look at the field, when you look at the court, when you look at the pool, wherever we are, the level at which these schools compete at and want to aspire to compete at is incredible. And so as you go through that evaluation and you really think about who are we, you talk to our athletic directors, you talk to our folks on campuses, the Forge Ahead mantra really stood out probably from the beginning. We looked at a number of different brand identities, obviously, but that was always sitting there from the start. And we came back to it at the end because, the word forge obviously plays right into what we're doing, right? We forged something new. And we're going to continue to build things that are new. We're going to continue to think that way. And we're going to continue to push things ahead. We're going to continue to be bold and innovative and new. We're going to, try to kick some butt. I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot this week, but, this is one hell of a football conference. And our expectations are to win championships. And I don't mean UAC championships, I mean national championships. So Forge Ahead just sort of speaks to that construction of what we built, and it also speaks to the mindset we have moving forward. And again, I think it's really important when I say we, I mean our presidents, our athletic directors, our coaches, everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. So I'm excited about the brand. I think it's authentic to who we are, and it's something we're going to have a lot of fun with.
We'll get a chance to preview all 8 UAC schools tomorrow. But before we look ahead, want to look back at this last year. So much success in the UAC, 2 playoff teams. You look at Tarleton State when as far as the quarterfinals, a number 4 seed in the playoffs. They're ranked as high as number 2 at one point in the nation. So when you look at the success of last year, how much does that excite you with what's to come and the programs? We'll talk about West Florida, but what you've also added to the league.
How does it not get you excited, right? That's the real question. And again, forge ahead. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And, last year, you had 2 teams in the playoffs, 2 top 10 teams in the seeding in the playoffs. I'd argue we should have had 2 more teams in the playoffs, quite frankly. We had what most people consider the first 2 teams out, what I consider should have been some of the last 2 teams in. So you're talking about 4 playoff caliber teams last year alone, including, as you said, a number 4 seed overall, which makes a big difference in the playoff structure, right? That means they're hosting just about all the way through. And so to build off of that this year is really exciting because, I think we were by most metrics, 3rd rated conference last year in the country. Well, that's great. We like being number 3, but we like being number 1 a lot more, right? So last year's success, I think people are seeing this league and understanding this league and really starting to respect this league and our teams and our coaches and what we do on the field. And so talk about a platform to walk into this year. I mean, I think our expectations are high, and they're high for good reason.
Look at who you guys added in the offseason. West Florida, a new member of the UAC. I mean, they were a powerhouse in Division II, won a national championship in 2019. What excites you most about what they bring to this football conference?
Well, you just touched on it, right? I mean, they have the same mindset that our current members have. Well, they're a current member now too, but when we brought them in, that's what we were evaluating. We want folks that want to come in and compete and expect to win. We don't want people to come in and spend the minimum, do the minimum, scrape by. We want people to invest and try to build a championship culture around this conference. And that's exactly what West Florida has proven and done in their history. As you mentioned, winning a national championship not too long ago. They're building a brand new football stadium as we speak, which is going to be spectacular. It'll roll out in 2027. So when you see a school that's invested in infrastructure, that's invested in their coaching staff, that's winning national championships, that's exactly the kind of school that we want to be a part of the UAC.
And really across the board, when you look at all the schools in the UAC, there's investments going on all over the place. North Alabama is having a new football stadium that's finally unveiling this year. They get to play their first games there. But when you look at that, when you see all those investments, how important is that when you guys move forward and you are forging ahead?
What do they say? Like rising tides lift all ships, right? Is that the phrase? I mean, that's what's happening in this league. Abilene Christian built a new football stadium not too long ago, which is absolutely sensational. You mentioned North Al's investment in their football stadium, which I think officially opens this year, September 19th at home. Obviously, what's happening at West Florida. And so they're investing in infrastructure. Our schools are also investing in talent acquisition, which is really important these days, right? And I don't want to gloss over the fact that we are spending money on roster development, and that's important, and that helps you win. We're spending money on coaches and recruiting top-tier coaches. If you look at our coaches room is top to bottom, one of the best, if not the best in the country in terms of talent, experience, success, et cetera. So when you're making those kind of investments, it raises the bar for everybody else to do the same. And we're seeing that. You're going to see a lot of that unfold this year at Central Arkansas, for example. You're going to see West Florida come in. I expect them to win some football games right off the bat. You see West Georgia, what they accomplished in year 2. Not even a full Division I member yet, and they go 8-3. I mean, if they're eligible for the playoffs, they're in the playoffs last year. So we haven't even talked about West Georgia and what they're doing. But I think the level is so high, the investment is so high. Obviously, Austin Peay, what they've done over the last few years, they're supposed to have a good year this year. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. One of the best quarterbacks in the country. So I mean, it's just like, how do you not get on board if you're a member of this league? If you're not doing the same thing, you're not going to win football games. And so all of our folks are doing that.
And when you get Chris Parsons back, anything can happen if you're Austin Peay. And you look at this upcoming year, we get a chance to preview all the teams tomorrow. But what is next this season for UAC football as you guys continue to rise and raise the standard each and every year? I mean, you're looking at a league in year 4 playing football and what they've accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, I touched on a little bit earlier, probably stole that question from you a little bit, but, we want to win a national championship. Our expectation is to be the number 1 ranked conference in FCS and to win a national championship, period. Nothing else will satisfy us. I mean, that's where we're at. Those are realistic goals for us. Those aren't dreams for us. We're right on the precipice of those things happening. The way we're scheduling is improved across the league. The results are translating onto the field. We're winning FBS games. I mean, we were the only league last year to win 2 FBS games in the country. So it's real, you know. And so when we're performing at that kind of level and seeing that kind of success, the only expectation left for us is to be number 1 and win a championship. And so I don't know if that'll happen this year, but it's going to happen sometime, and I'm excited for that.
You look at the FCS playoffs, and you've talked a lot about, you know, the process and maybe some room for improvement with the model. From your seat and what you've noticed as Tarleton State has gone through and we've had teams in the playoffs, where is there room for progress there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd start with the real positives because, and I'd really credit the NCAA and the staff there, Ty Halpin and his team. They really do a nice job of putting on a really great championship and playoff. And it's a difficult thing to do, 24 teams over 4, 5, 6 weeks. It's hard, and they do a really nice job. Our championship game itself, I would argue last year's championship game hosted by Vanderbilt in Nashville was as an elite a championship experience as I've seen. So credit to them first and foremost. Is there room to improve? Yeah, there is. You know, financially, that championship should be driving revenue, quite frankly. And not only revenue in general, but revenue back to our schools and its participants. And the reality is the teams that participate in the NCAA FCS playoffs right now lose money. And you lose money, generally speaking, whether you're home or on the road. In fact, quite often you lose more money at home than you do when you're actually on the road because there's some supplemental funds that do come from the NCAA to help out teams that are traveling in the championship. So when you have this exciting moment and you're going into the playoffs, but as a president or an AD, you know this is going to cost you some money. And it's the most monetized sport in our country, at least, if not the world. That's a miss. You know, that's a miss. And I'm not directing blame for that other than pointing out the fact that we need to better monetize that playoff. And we need to turn that into an event that not only holds whole or even the teams that participate in that championship, but it ought to be a revenue driver. Not only back to, again, the schools and or the conferences, that would be great, but also to the NCAA. It should be driving net positive revenue back to the NCAA that's then reinvested into the sport of football, right? It shouldn't just dissolve into oblivion. Mm-hmm. It should be reinvested in the sport that's bringing it in, especially when, again, you've got schools that are participating in that championship that are losing money. If everybody's doing fine and we want to disperse dollars elsewhere, I'm okay with that. But when everybody's not doing fine that's participating in the championship, that says there's an issue to me. So I think the NCAA has done some good things recently to try to address that. We've had really healthy dialogue with leadership at the NCAA about that issue. Some things are happening now with sponsorship rights based on the new basketball tournament agreement that will open up, I think, some opportunities to sell some sponsorship rights into the FCS playoff, which needs to happen, and to better start driving revenue, ticket sales, et cetera. So I'm cautiously optimistic that over the next couple of years we can start to, you know, right that and even that. But if we can't get that figured out, we got to think about something different, some other way to run that championship that drives the value that it not only deserves, but it's actually creating in the marketplace, and we're just not capturing. So we've been talking about that for maybe a year and a half now in various iterations. There was some conversation at one point about the possibility of moving the championship outside of the NCAA structure. We didn't get very far in that conversation, but we certainly had that conversation. We've had, again, really healthy and good conversation with the NCAA, President Baker, Ty, and all their team about ways to improve the experience for the playoff as it stands, and hopefully that's where we get. But again, I think we need to really keep a sharp eye on that and ensure that we're moving that in the right direction for this championship to really be successful and what it can be potentially.
I think that's a great point. I don't think a lot of people even realize that you weren't necessarily even breaking even. You were losing money if you're in the playoffs, but it seems like the conversations are in place to put a better model moving forward. And you look at what you guys are doing with the Unison Sports and 2 conferences coming together, brand new. Where do you see room for more collaboration with other conferences?
Well, we've got to do it, right? We've got to figure out when and how we can collaborate together because, again, what we learn, we're learning it right now. Right? Individually as conferences at the mid-major level of Division I, it's really hard to drive eyeballs, to drive exposure, to drive revenue, to drive resources, if we just sit on our own islands together. And what we've proven and learned with Unison Sports is that when you do come together, you can not only reduce costs, which is the same thing as making money, you can drive new revenue and new value. And we've got some things coming out, I think, in the near future that'll speak to that in particular, including a new media rights deal that will be really the first of its kind in Division One. And so we've sort of proven that that works. That idea of putting more people together drives better value and creates new opportunity. We all have the same issues. You know, if you look around to the peer conferences that most folks would consider to be in that same bucket as the UAC or even the ASUN within that Unison Sports family, we all look about the same, Kendra. I mean, our revenues are about the same. Our levels of success are pretty similar. Our brands might be different. How long we've been around might be different. But other than the geography we occupy might be different, we're about the same, you know? And again, if we all sit around by ourselves, we're going to stay the same. So number one, the more we come together, the more value we can drive. Number two, we don't know what the future holds, right? We don't know what Division One's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years from now. There's all kinds of theories about that out there. There's all kinds of reports about this, that, and the other, right? You live in that space. Who knows where this thing goes? But we've got 360 plus schools in Division One that range from $350 million budgets a year to $8 million budgets a year. That's not going to sustain itself, in my opinion, for the long term. Now, does it last another 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? I'm not sure. But at some point, that becomes unsustainable, right? We got a lot of different people with a lot of different priorities. And so the more that conferences like ours and our peers can start to talk together and think together about what we want our future to look like, and proactively start to explore new models or new partnerships or whatever it might be, this is the time to do that. And I'm not going to suggest that's not happening. That is happening in some spaces. I know for us, we've got some really, really strong partnerships with some geographically centric conferences around us. We've done a lot with the SoCon and Commissioner Cross in the last couple of years and continue to have discussions with the SoCon about ways we can work together. The Southland Conference, Commissioner Grant, great partners down there. We continue to have conversations about how we can find ways to work together. And so exploring that, there's others too, but you know, exploring that is important now. I think it becomes more important every day. And I don't know what that looks like either, Kendra. I don't know if that doesn't necessarily mean people need to replicate our model, but it means we need to find ways to work together, whether that's competitively or financially or resource-wise or scheduling, anything it can be to try to help each other out. I think it's important to situate us for the future. So I'm optimistic about some of the conversations that are happening in that space now. And I just named a couple. There's others that are certainly heavily engaged in trying to think about ways to work together. But you know, again, if we don't start to figure that out now, we're just going to slip behind. And if change starts to happen around us, we won't be prepared for it. I'd rather control the change in the narrative than react to it. So
yeah, it's one of my favorite phrases that you had said. You can either be pushing the ball or let the ball roll over you. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. Yeah. You look at so many changes happening in the NCAA. There's new things happening there. I mean, we're looking at a new model of eligibility where athletes have a 5-year window for 5 consecutive years. And that is so different from years past. What do you think is going to be the biggest change we're going to see from that as athletes only have a window now to compete rather than what was going on before, which was a lot of hecticness?
Yeah, well, hopefully it calms some of that down. That's obviously the goal, right? To create a little bit of clarity, to reduce the lawsuits, although right now that's not happening. We kind of anticipated that, I think, that initially there would be some wave of lawsuits as you make change. There usually is. But long term, if we can hold to this new eligibility rule, I think it does help us. It eliminates waivers, most importantly, is what it does, because that's where most of these lawsuits originate from, is waivers or lack thereof. So if we can get away from that, that'll help. What's important for the student athletes to recognize, and we spoke with our Council of Student Athletes just earlier this week or last week about this, it's important for them to realize this is not 5 for 5 anymore. That's kind of the old phrase, 5 for 5, which really indicated you can kind of play 5 years in a 5-year window, but almost any time. Now what happens is, and I'm not the governance expert on this, so my staff will probably check me on this, but basically you turn 19 or you graduate high school, your 5-year clock starts automatically. It doesn't matter what you do. You can go take a year off, you can go to junior college, you can do anything you want, but that clock starts. and then it ends at the end of 5 years, no matter what. And that also means that if you're a rising, let's say you're a rising senior in high school right now, and you're hoping to go to a Division I school and compete athletically, you need to get going almost right away, right? You don't want to delay that. I mean, you can still delay your enrollment, but you're just going to lose a year. So thinking about that, knowing you got that clock, and knowing that this applies for those that are coming up and those that are there now, you get hurt, you get hurt. If you're injured for a year, you tear an ACL and you're out for 18 months, you're out for 18 months. You don't get that back. There's no waiver. There's no medical hardship waiver, as we would call it today. So it's important to know that. And again, I mentioned there's no waivers, but there are exceptions. And it's really also important to delineate between those two things. Not a waiver, it's an exception, right? Which is, I think it's military service, mission service, pregnancy. I might be missing one, but I know those are three of the big ones. So there are some exceptions to the rule to be aware of, but again, hopefully that brings some clarity to the marketplace. Hopefully it reduces the litigation. Hopefully it also helps our student athletes compete. It's tough. I have a hard time. You want everybody to compete, and I think you want everybody to have the opportunity to be a college student athlete because it's so special. At the same time, it's really difficult to watch any sort of competition for me and see a 18-year-old trying to compete against a 26-year-old. It's just different, right? I think we can all acknowledge that in some form or fashion. And in some sports, frankly, that's dangerous. Football is a good example of that. A 26-year-old from a physical standpoint, maturity standpoint, is very different than an 18-year-old. I think we've all been through that, right? And so it's actually kind of scary and worrisome from a safety standpoint as well. So I think it levels the playing field. I think it's going to create better competition. I think it creates clarity in the marketplace, hopefully reduces lawsuits. And we'll see. And now we got to stick to it, Kendra, right? Like we have a long history of getting away from our rules or not wanting to follow rules. And I think I would say this to our schools and any school that's out there: follow the damn rules. I think we're all really tired of folks that want to put rules in place, that say they support them, and then that go either don't follow them, blatantly break them, find a judge in their backyard that gives to their school to get a ruling that they like so they don't have to follow the rules. I mean, it's becoming absurd, right? And we almost saw that come to a head with the gambling situation in Brendan Sorsby not too long ago. Now, maybe for the best, maybe not. We never got to see that resolved. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It might have been a good, healthy thing for us to get through that and come to some kind of resolution. Unfortunately, we never really got there. But that's a really scary example of where we are right now in Division I in college athletics, that we were about to allow a student athlete who bet on his own team, on his own games that he was a player in, and we were going to let him play. We were going to say that's okay. That's insanity. And we've seen other iterations of that. That's probably the most dramatic one, and it certainly, I think, sparked the attention of the most people in our industry. But that's where we're at. And so that's a little bit of a speech about, follow the damn rules. But it comes back to the 5-year eligibility. It's great that we've got the 5-year eligibility rule. Let's stick to it. I don't want to see someone then go, a school in particular, including mine, go file a lawsuit proclaiming that so-and-so should have a 6-year for this, that, and the other. Let's get behind the rules, let's follow them, and let's try to bring some sanity back, especially if we want help from Congress. The more they see us with an inability to follow our own rules, the less inclined they are to help us.
It's a great point. I mean, the days of the 6th and 7th year seniors out there could be over with this model if it holds and everyone sticks to that. And you mentioned Congress. There's the Protect College Sports Act. That is a bipartisan federal bill aiming at having regulations for college sports. Can you update us on where that stands and what that is aiming to do?
Yeah, that act is generally speaking, it's probably our best chance right now at bringing some sort of stability to college athletics. Now, it's not perfect. It is far from perfect, but as a couple of friends in the industry would say, don't let perfection get in the way of progress, right? So it is progress. It's the first bipartisan bill that we've seen, as you mentioned. The SCORE Act, which was introduced some months ago, was a partisan bill. And that's part of why that never really gained a whole lot of traction. This is the first time that we've got both sides of the aisle coming together to try to help us. And so you've got Ted Cruz from here in Texas. You've got Maria Cantwell from up in Washington. Those two have come together. They've worked really hard. They spent a lot of time with all of the Division I commissioners, which I think we all really appreciate, to try to hear our perspective on the issue. And with everything they've got going on in their world right now, the fact that they're devoting this amount of time to our industry and trying to help us is tremendous. And so we need to take advantage of this window of opportunity where we have Congress's attention, we have interested parties, we have a chance to address a lot of our issues. We need antitrust protection. That's the biggest one. People need to stop being able to sue us, right, for our own rules and those kinds of things. We need to make rules and stick to rules. We need help with transfers. We need help with NIL. We need help regulating all these crazy areas that we see and hear about. And a lot of what's in the Protect College Sports Act will help address those things. There's still room for improvement. I really do not like, there's a Title I and a Title II to the PCSA. Title I addresses a lot of what I just talked about. Title II is what I would generally refer to as the section that sort of goes after the big guys. And one of the things I really don't like about it is there's some targeted provisions within this that really, frankly, are aimed right at our friends at the Big Ten, the SEC, and a little bit less so, but still at them, the ACC and the Big 12. And I don't believe that if we want to have a healthy and sustainable Division I for a long time, which I do, it's important for my schools to compete against SEC institutions. It means a lot on our campuses. A lot of those schools come to our campuses. A lot of our schools are bound together within state systems, and competing against each other is important. We partner with the SEC in a number of spaces. The most prominent is officiating, which is really healthy for both of us. And those partnerships matter. And I love beating SEC teams every now and then too. That doesn't hurt either, because we do that every now and then, right? So that's important to us and to the ecosystem of Division I. So when we have legislation that is targeted towards any particular conference, I don't care if it's the SEC, the ASUN, or anybody else, that's not right, in my opinion. So I would love to see some effort be made to reduce this sort of aimed attack at the SEC and the Big Ten, which would prevent them from movement. It would restrict their abilities to schedule. It would restrict their abilities to expand. I don't want them to expand any more than anybody else does, but I also don't believe that we should be telling them how to conduct our business from a federal standpoint. It speaks to like their scheduling and how they should or shouldn't schedule. Those are spaces that I just don't believe personally that Congress should get involved in. Do we need and want help? Yes, we need and want help. But do we want them telling us and or telling any of us how to conduct their day-to-day business? I don't think we do. I don't think that's good for us. It could be a target aimed at one conference today. It could be another one tomorrow. And so that's a slippery slope. So I'd love to see a lot of Title II retracted down to reduce the target on those conferences. That would be helpful. There's a lot of talk about the media rights and this ability to pool media rights. And I think there's some fear, I would have some fear out there that is, potentially couched as voluntary, but creates a structure and a pressure ecosystem that almost forces it to happen. So we can say, yeah, conferences can pool their media rights voluntarily, which is what it says. But the construct of that is really important because voluntary can become voluntold real quick, right? We all know that. So I think that needs to be looked at a little bit deeper in terms of pooling media rights and again, kind of dictating what can or can't happen. And we need to prevent an opportunity for a third party to come in and poach away schools because they're not subjected to the same rules that we are. And so I think addressing third parties and their ability or inability to act outside of the bounds of our rules is important. We've got to protect us in a way that says, if we do follow the rules that are put in place, if the Protect College Sports Act passes, great. We shouldn't be sued for following its rules then. And there's a little bit of some language in there that I think needs to be cleaned up in that space as well to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we have some protections from states in particular, trying to find loopholes around some things. So there's some other areas that need to be cleaned up, and those are important. I think Congress is looking at those right now. They have been receptive to a little bit of that dialogue to date, although we really haven't seen a new draft of the PCSA to know where we really stand. I think we're still waiting for that today. I didn't see any news breaking this morning, but maybe I missed something, but that's important too. So great progress. We as two leagues and as Unison Sports are supportive of the Protect College Sports Act moving forward, but we also believe very deeply that certain elements of it still need to be addressed and or rewritten to make sure that we get it right, or as right as we can. So We'll see. It did get out of the Senate Commerce Committee a couple of weeks ago, which is a huge first step, something the SCORE Act never did, get out of committee. We're waiting for it to be called to the floor of the Senate, where it needs a 60% vote or 60 votes to pass to get out of the Senate. Then it has to go to the House. We got a long way to go. And there's a lot of other things happening in Congress. So we'll see if we get there. I think we're cautiously optimistic, but we need something. We need something that helps us regulate ourselves and bring us back to order. So I hope this can be it.
Well, Jeff, a lot of great points, a lot of great information as we navigate this new landscape of college athletics. Thank you so much. UAC football kickoff will continue tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time on ESPN+. All head coaches and student athletes will stop by to preview the upcoming year. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kendra. Great to see you.
Good to see you.